I was back at the hospital for my night shift just a few weeks ago. I'd been a nurse for over 10 years, so I thought I knew what to expect. The night felt different, though. I made my rounds, checking on patients. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. That was just a regular thing in our hospital, so I didn't think much of it. As I walked past the pediatric ward, I heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter echoed down the empty corridor. I felt uneasy. No kids should be awake at this hour. I shook my head, trying to shake off the chill. Maybe I was just tired. I moved on, but I couldn't ignore that feeling. Nights passed, and I started noticing other odd things. Whispers floated through the air. Shadows danced just out of sight. I told myself I was imagining it. The long shifts had to be catching up with me. But one night I was drawn back to that pediatric ward. It was closed at night, but I had to see for myself. When I opened the door, I found a little playroom hidden in the corner. Old toys filled the space, gathering dust. I didn't remember ever seeing it before. A chill shot down my spine. I felt like someone was watching me. I stepped inside, and each creak of the floor sounded loud. I glanced back, then froze. A shape moved just beyond the glass. It was small and pale, but it disappeared the moment I looked straight at it. My heart raced, and a knot formed in my stomach. I didn't know what I was seeing. I turned to leave. When the laughter returned, crystal clear. The laughter had a taunting tone, but it felt innocent too. I was scared but curious. I had to go back again. The next shift, I found myself there after midnight. I walked the empty hallway, heart pounding. The laughter echoed, spilling from the playroom. I didn't want to admit what I was feeling. I stepped closer but felt something brush past me, a cold breeze. I glanced around, but nothing was there. I felt lost. I couldn't tell if I was imagining this. Should I go in? The door rattled behind me. I turned, feeling sweat under my scrubs. No one was there, just silence. I felt trapped in that moment. It was eerie and heavy. The laughter rang out again, dancing on the air around me. It was like something wanted me there but didn't want me to know what. I was desperate to hold onto my sanity. I stepped back, looking over my shoulder. I wanted to run, but part of me wanted to understand. I was tied to that place now. As I took another step back, the door creaked open slowly. I froze. I glanced again. No one. The hallway was empty. The laughter faded, leaving only silence. I felt something wasn't right about all this. Maybe I should have never come back. As I stood there, the weight of that empty hallway pressed down on me. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still not alone. I stood there in the dim light, my heart racing. Each second felt stretched, like time itself was taunting me. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to step inside the playroom. The door creaked open wider, almost inviting me in. I hesitated, but curiosity drove me forward. The toys lay scattered, forgotten. A small doll with a chipped face sat in the corner, looking up at me. I picked it up, feeling the brittle plastic beneath my fingers. It made me shudder. Why was this place so full of life, yet so cold? The laughter echoed again, ricocheting off the walls. I dropped the doll in surprise. It clattered to the floor, its eerie giggle swallowed by silence as it fell. I backed up, my feet bumping into something. I looked down to see an old, wooden chest, half hidden by dust. Against my better judgment, I knelt beside it. The whispers had grown louder somehow. "Open it," they seemed to say. I ignored the impulse, but the chest called to me. I pulled the lid open, and a rush of cold air rushed out. Inside lay a collection of worn books and drawings, artwork by children, their smiling faces drawn with thick crayons. I skimmed through the pages. The innocence of it struck me, but a chill was creeping in again. I noticed one drawing with a dark figure standing over a child in bed. My breath hitched as I flipped the page, revealing another image. The same figure, but this time it was towering beside the playroom. I felt a knot in my stomach. The laughter rose again, but this time it wasn't playful. Felt frantic. I closed the chest quickly, a sense of dread washing over me. The atmosphere shifted, and every childhood whisper around me morphed into a shriek. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. I pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at me. "Let me out," I yelled, but my voice echoed back as a cruel mockery. I backed away from the door, then aimed my flashlight at the wall. Shadows moved, twisting in the darkness. My heart pounded faster. Suddenly, an icy gust rushed through the room, flickering the lights. I could have sworn I saw the figure then, tall and foreboding, watching me from the corner of the playroom. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't just my imagination. It stood there, darkly outlined against the faint light. I turned from the door, my instincts shouting at me to get out. I had to find another way. Just as I staggered toward the window, the infernal laughter burst forth again. It morphed into a different sound, a chorus of cries weaving through the air. Then, unexpectedly, everything went dark. The lights cut out, plunging me into utter blackness. I could barely breathe. Fear consumed me, twisting my stomach into knots. In that moment of despair, I reached into my pocket for my phone, my lifeline in the abyss. When the screen lit up, it felt like a beacon in the dark. I scanned the room. That was when I saw it, a handprint on the glass of the door. Small, with an unmistakable outline. It was like a message, a reminder that I wasn't alone. With a surge of adrenaline, I pounded on the door, hoping someone would hear me. But the laughter returned, louder now, rattling my resolve and filling me with dread. I knew I had to get out. I felt trapped not just physically, but in something much darker that I still couldn't comprehend. I needed answers, and deep down I felt this was just the beginning. The darkness felt alive around me. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the silence. My phone screen was my only source of light, but it wasn't enough. The laughter had stopped, and the playroom was still, but I could sense something lurking just beyond my vision. With shaking hands, I turned back to the door. I pounded on it again, shouting for help. The echoes ricocheted noisily off the walls, but I knew how hopeless it sounded. Was anyone even close enough to hear? I didn't want to think about it. Instead, I focused on my options. I scanned the room for another way out. My flashlight beam danced across the floor, revealing old toys, faded colors, and the eerie doll I had dropped earlier. Then I spotted it. A small window was high on the wall opposite to me. It looked narrow, but I had to try. There was no choice. I rushed toward it, adrenaline flooding my veins. My heart pounded as I leapt onto an old table nearby. I reached up, straining to lift myself. But just as I got my fingers on the edge, the window rattled violently, as if something on the other side was slamming against it. "Stop!" I cried out, recoiling back. I felt the room pulse with a rush of cold air. And again, the laughter started. This time it was deafening. I felt it deep in my bones, an unsettling reminder that I was far from alone. Panic surged again, but I forced myself to concentrate. I turned to the chest, my only remaining tether to the past this place held. What had I missed? On impulse, I yanked the lid open again, sending a cloud of dust swirling. The books lay just as I left them, each cover fading but their contents still intact. I rummaged through them, flipping pages as quickly as I could, searching for anything that might make sense of this nightmare. Then one book caught my eye. There was something different about it, a marked page. My fingers traced the edge as I pulled it free. It was a drawing of the same dark figure I'd seen before, but this time it had a name scrawled beneath. The Keeper. My breath hitched. Who was the Keeper? And why did it feel like this figure was connected to the horrors around me? As I contemplated, I heard the creaking of the floorboards behind me. My heart raced as I turned slowly, every instinct telling me to be ready for whatever was there. I saw it then, the outline of a child, small and shadowy, standing among the toys, its eyes wide and unblinking. "Help," it whispered, the voice crackling like a broken radio. I stepped back, my heart in my throat. "What do you want from me?" It didn't respond, just stared, and the sound of laughter mounted again. But mingled with it were faint cries, souls trapped. Maybe pleading for release. Just then, The door bucked violently against the pressure of something unseen. My breath caught, and I stumbled backward toward the window, realizing the only exit was turning into my worst nightmare. I had to get out, but before I could formulate a plan, everything changed again. The lights flickered back on, revealing the child standing closer. It opened its mouth, and that S when I heard it a chilling sound that turned my blood cold. Stay, and with that, the room plunged back into darkness. The laughter erupted once more, wrapping me in a shroud of terror. The only thing I knew was that something wanted to keep me here, and I was running out of time. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the cold wall opposite the window. Panic surged, and I quickly regained my footing. The oppressive laughter echoed loudly, swirling around me. I felt like I was drowning in it. Stay, the word lingered in my mind. What did it mean? Did the shadow child want me to remain trapped here in this nightmarish playroom? I couldn't let that happen. Fumbling in the dark, I tried to focus on what was tangible. The small, narrow window loomed above, my only chance. I pushed my fear down and squared my shoulders. I had to escape. I focused back on the table. Climbing onto it, I took a deep breath and leapt up, fingers grasping the ledge of the window. It felt high and slippery. I strained my arms, pulling myself up, praying that whatever was hunting me wouldn't reach me first. Just as my elbows found purchase, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, deliberate, slow, closing in on me. I peered down, my stomach dropping as I saw the faint glow of the floor lamp flickering back on. The shadow child was now only a few feet away, its face still blank, its eyes burning with an intensity that chilled me. The doll on the ground was now turned, its gaze fixed right on me. Help, it repeated, but deeper this time, as if something darker inhabited its voice. I pushed myself harder, finally getting my legs over the ledge. My fingers scraped the surface, and I clambered through the window, tumbling into the narrow gap. I squeezed my body through, feeling the sharp edges scrape against my skin. My heart raced as I realized how close the child was to me. I didn't want to look back, but I couldn't resist. That S when I saw it. The moment I turned, I felt a hand brush against my ankle. I gasped, adrenaline spiking through my veins as I kicked myself free, launching out of the window into the chilling night air. I hit the ground hard but rolled into a crouch, glancing around frantically. I was outside, but the playroom loomed behind me, its window now somehow larger, the frame twisting, almost inviting. The darkness was thick, smothering. The laughter was muffled now, but it didn't disappear. Instead, it morphed into whispers, layering over one another like a shroud. Come back, stay, help. I had escaped the room but not its grasp. As I took off toward the tall trees that lined the yard, I glanced back at the window. The child's face was there, twisted in ominous delight, its black eyes boring into me. It raised a hand and pointed, its shadow stretching toward me like an accusing finger. I stumbled, my feet pounding against the ground. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere felt better than here. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still coming for me, that this was just the beginning. Then, I heard it again, a small voice calling out, softer but clearer, as if carried by the wind. Stay with us. My stomach dropped. The night was far from over. I had escaped the room, but the keeper's influence was everywhere, and the true horror of what I had awakened was just beginning to dawn on me. The trail of trees swayed in the wind, and I kept moving, driven by an impulse to flee. Each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself wanted to pull me back. I didn't stop until I reached the dark mass of the woods, but even then, I hesitated. The branches loomed overhead, like skeletal fingers reaching for me. I leaned against a tree, trying to catch my breath and make sense of what was happening. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to focus. The whispering voices were still there, swirling like the leaves in the breeze. Stay, they echoed, and I shivered. I didn't want to stay anywhere near that place, yet part of me feared that it already had a hold on me. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes caught my attention. I stared into the darkness, every nerve in my body on high alert. Was I being followed? My mind raced with possibilities. Was it the shadow child? Or something worse? I crouched low, peering through the underbrush, hoping to see anything that would help explain my bizarre escape. When I noticed something glimmering beneath the leaves. Slowly, I reached out and brushed away the damp foliage. What I found was a small silver locket. It was beautifully crafted, with intricate designs etched into its surface. I held it up to the moonlight, and it seemed to pulse with a strange energy. The whispering voices morphed again, twisting into a cacophony of pleas and warnings. Open it, please. A rush of unease washed over me. Who was asking me to open it? The child? The doll? Felt like a trap, but the curiosity gnawed at me. I could feel a connection, as if the locket was somehow tied to the playroom I'd just escaped. The laughter from the house echoed faintly in the distance, as if inviting me back, taunting me. I gripped the locket tighter, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to run until I was far from all this. But what if it held the answer? What if opening it could give me the power to stop whatever this was? I looked around, and for a moment, I felt a sense of calm. The trees stood silent, watching. With a deep breath, I clicked it open. A faint light spilled from the locket, illuminating my face. Inside was a small photograph of a young girl, her smile a mix of innocence and sorrow. Before I could think, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the light. I blinked, and the locket slipped from my fingers, landing among the leaves. Panic rose in my throat as I scrambled to find it. But when I reached down, it was gone. A sharp gasp broke through the silence. I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a woman, pale and worn, with eyes like voids that seemed to pierce through me. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly, her voice laced with an eerie calm. I stumbled back, fear coursing through my veins. "Who are you?" She stepped closer, and I could see the edges of her form flickering in the darkness. "I was one of them once." Then everything went cold. The forest felt alive, twisting and drumming with unseen pressure. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I could hear the whispers surging again, a symphony of sorrow, and they weren't just from the boy in the playroom anymore. "Help us," she whispered. I realized then that I hadn't escaped at all. I had only opened the door wider. I stumbled backward, my back scraping against the rough bark of the tree. Panic surged through me as I tried to put distance between myself and the woman. "What do you mean?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel her gaze bore into me, heavy and unyielding. Her apparition shimmered for a moment before settling. "They cannot be free until you accept it," she said, her voice an echo of grief. "You opened the door, and now they are drawn to you." I shook my head in disbelief. "No, I didn't mean to." A chorus of whispers erupted around me, each voice rising and then falling, like waves crashing against a shore. "Help us," it swelled. "Don't leave us." My heart raced. I looked around, the shadows deepening, twisting into elongated forms. Panic gripped me. I could feel my resolve waver. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, desperate for clarity. "Find us," the woman said, her form flickering with each heartbeat as if the darkness itself wanted to engulf her. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. I could sense the forest's vulnerability, the trees shifting uneasily with my every breath. "Find who?" I demanded, scanning the shadows for a sign. In the back of my mind, I could feel the weight of the locket's promise, even as the thought of it made my stomach churn. Had I truly messed things up by opening it? Before I could push any further, she pointed past me, toward the heart of the woods. "Follow the trail. It will lead you to the truth." The moment she gestured, the air tightened, and a sudden chill swept past, rattling the branches above. I turned my head quickly, expecting to see anything, but the forest loomed protectively, silent except for the rustle of leaves. I couldn't stay here much longer. My legs felt like they were on autopilot, guided by a desperation to escape. Yet there was also a phantom pull toward the path she had indicated. It felt like an unraveling thread tugging at my mind. "I can't," I said, unable to meet her gaze. I can't do this. Even now, you tread on the threshold of their existence. Her stare deepened, nearly boring into my soul. Each step away drags them further into darkness. As I weighed her words, I felt a shift. The forest wasn't just a backdrop. It was alive with intent. A low murmur thrummed in the air, growing louder, the voices intertwining with the howl of the wind. I inhaled sharply, made my decision, and took a step towards the deeper shadows. There was something pulling at me, a sense of urgency I couldn't ignore. I had to understand what it all meant. If she was telling the truth, what horrors awaited me? Just then, a crack echoed through the dense trees. I turned sharply, heart racing as I caught the scent of something metallic, something unsettlingly familiar. I froze in place, every instinct on high alert. When I saw it, more figures emerging from the darkness, countless shapes with hollow eyes, watching me. I could hardly breathe. They were drawn to me, a collective nightmare just waiting to unfold. Help us, they echoed in unison, and as the shadows closed in, I realized the path ahead might not lead me to the truth at all, but to a much darker end. Couldn't move. The figures surrounded me, their hollow eyes gleaming in the fading light. The whispers turned urgent, rising in a cacophony that pressed against my skull like a weight. Help us, they cried again, stretching their arms toward me, fingers grasping at the air. I could practically feel their desperation like a cold breath against my neck. Stay back, I shouted, even as my voice trembled. But they didn't stop. Their forms swayed, a blend of sorrow and longing mixed in their distorted faces. I turned to run, my instincts screaming at me to escape, but the shadows shifted and coiled like serpents around my legs. I stumbled back, looking for any escape route, but the forest narrowed around me, suffocating as the figures closed in. You have to help us. One voice rang clear through the tumult, a woman's voice, rich with sadness. It was unlike the others, somehow grounding. Stop, I yelled, fighting to push through the waves of darkness. I don't know how. I can't help you. But with every word, I sensed the weight of the locket tugging harder at my chest, demanding I act. A surge of clarity hit me, a memory of the woman with the shimmering form. She had shown me a way. There was a trail. Find the truth. Her voice echoed in my mind as I glanced at the ground beneath me. An uneven patch of dirt caught my eye, faintly illuminated by a remaining beam of light. It looked almost like a path leading deeper into the woods. Follow it, I shouted to myself, breaking free from the figures. I sprinted toward the trail, instinct pushing me forward as the shadows hissed behind me, their whispers growing faint but persistent. I could feel their yearning bleed into the air, wrapping around me with every desperate breath. As I ran, branches snagged at my clothes, but I pressed on, diving past the space where the trees twisted and leaned away from one another. The voices faded behind me, replaced by a heavy silence. I stumbled onto the trail, and my feet struggled to keep up. I squinted into the dark ahead, the path bending and shifting like it had a mind of its own. My heart hammered in my chest, but with each step, the air felt less oppressive. The shadows, for now, had receded. But then, just as I thought I might be free, I spotted something on the ground. A small object gleamed faintly, its edges glinting like a beacon in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat. It was the locket, the very one that had drawn me into this nightmare. I picked it up, feeling its cool weight in my palm. The moment I touched it, a chill coursed through me, and the forest erupted into chaos. Find us, the voices thundered around me, a storm of shadows reclaiming their hold. I looked around in horror, as the figures piled in from every direction once more, their limbs twisted and desperate. Before I could even think to run again, the locket pulsed in my hand, and I felt an overwhelming pull toward whatever lay ahead, toward the heart of the woods. I had closed the door behind me, but now it was wide open. Fighting against instinct, I launched myself down the path, locket held tight. The shadows surged behind me, and as the darkness swirled, I knew. The truth awaited, and it was going to demand much more than I was prepared to give. My feet pounded against the ground as I raced forward, the locket feeling like a live wire in my palm. The further I ran, the more intense the pull became, as if it were tethered to something just beyond the trees. I had no idea where I was going, just that I had to keep moving, keep fleeing from those shadows that were closing in. Then I saw it. A faint light flickering up ahead. It was small, almost hidden by the surrounding foliage, but it was enough to push me onward. The shadows whispered in my ears like a chilling wind, but the light seemed to offer hope, or at least a moment of reprieve. As I approached, the underbrush cleared, and I stumbled into a small clearing. The source of the light revealed itself to be an old lantern standing on a weathered table, illuminating a few scattered objects around it. The lantern flickered, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the trees. I hesitated, my breath coming in short gasps. What was this place? Why was there a lantern in the middle of the woods? I took a step closer, and that's when I noticed another object, a journal lying partially open on the table. My heart raced. I picked it up cautiously, the pages crackling under my fingers. Handwritten notes filled the pages, detailing strange occurrences in the woods. I flipped through, my eyes scanning the text. It detailed sightings of figures, ghostly silhouettes roaming at night similar to those I had seen. They seek something, one entry read. They cannot rest until it is found. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. Who had written this? I wondered if it could lead me closer to understanding what had happened to the figures haunting me. As I turned to another page, a sharp snap echoed in the stillness, and I froze. Someone or something was behind me. I spun around quickly, gripping the locket tighter. Nothing but shadows surrounded me, deepening the dread welling inside. I took a cautious step back toward the table, but the weight of someone else's gaze pressed down on me. What do you want? I called out, my voice shaking. Silence. Then, a whispering voice echoed through the clearing, barely audible. Finish what you started. My heart raced. Was it the woman I had seen earlier? I don't know how. I shouted back, feeling helpless. The locket grew cold in my hand, and I sensed the air shift as the energy in the clearing changed. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement. Shadows began to coalesce, forming indistinct shapes just beyond the light of the lantern. I was surrounded again, and the weight of their desperate yearning intensified. Help us please, they were right in front of me now, urging me forward. I felt the pull of the locket surge, the desperation of their cries entwining with my own fear. I had stumbled into a nightmare, and the only way out was to find the truth buried deep within their pleas. Then everything went dark. The lantern extinguished, swallowed by the night, and I was left in total silence. My heart pounded at the sudden change. The light had been my only beacon, and now it was gone. I could hear the shadows closing in, but I didn't know where to run. The truth had become even murkier, heavier, and I felt the weight of their request pressing on my chest. I was not just running from them anymore. I was about to face whatever lay within the darkness. And this darkness? It was alive. The darkness engulfed me like a suffocating blanket, and I stood frozen in that clearing, lost and disoriented. Every sound felt amplified: my breathing, the rustling of leaves, the quickening heartbeat that echoed in my ears. I was completely alone, or so I thought. From the depths of that blackness, I heard it again, a whisper, taunting, coaxing. Find us. Remember the words twisted through the air, wrapping around me with a chilling familiarity. Memories flooded back, unbidden. I had heard those same words before, not out here in the woods but in a place far less forgiving. Suddenly, the locket in my hand pulsed with a cold energy, like a warning. I held it up, trying to make sense of what was happening. The shadows flickered in its brief reflection, each flicker revealing hints of the figures that haunted me. Desperate faces twisted in sorrow, mouths moving but making no sound, their eyes wide with fear, pleading with me for something I had yet to comprehend. I took a freezing breath and steadied myself. Whatever was happening, whatever I had touched on the surface, it was linked to this moment. I decided I couldn't just stand here and let the darkness claim me. If you want me to help, show me what I need to know. I shouted into the void. The air thickened, almost electric. Then there was movement, a rush of wind that seemed to carry whispers. With it, the darkness morphed, expanding outward like a living creature, revealing fragments of the clearing I had yet to see. The lantern flickered back to life, its warm glow dispelling some of the shadows, but it barely illuminated a new scene that opened up around me. At the edge of the clearing, an old signpost creaked in the breeze, its letters worn and unreadable. Just past it was the outline of a dilapidated building, half hidden in the underbrush. I felt a pull from the locket again, stronger now, urging me toward it. That's where I need to go, I thought. With each tentative step, the whispers intensified, guiding me toward the structure. Memories intertwined with the air, pulling at my mind like a half-remembered dream. I could almost see them, the lost faces, the ones searching for resolution. Were they trapped here, unable to move on? As I reached the entrance, a sudden cold breeze swept through the area. The door creaked open, inviting. I peered inside, the beam of the lantern cutting through the darkness like a knife. The air felt heavy with expectation, thickening around me as if the space itself was holding its breath. Then, just as I stepped over the threshold, a sharp crack echoed behind me, and the sound of branches breaking filled the night. I whipped around, heart racing. Something was coming. Something that was not just a shadow. And for the first time, fear gripped me like never before. With no choice but to face it, I stepped deeper into the unknown. I had to find out what lurked in the dark, and what it truly wanted from me. If the whispers were right, this was only the beginning. I had to uncover the truth, whatever the cost. I stepped cautiously into the dilapidated building, the air thick with dust and secrets. The lantern flickered, casting uneven shadows that danced around me as I moved deeper into the space. The echoes of my footsteps seemed to awaken something dormant within the walls, an ancient energy slumbering just out of reach. The whispers had quieted, replaced by a heavy silence that felt almost sacrilegious in its stillness. Inside, the room was cluttered with remnants of the past, broken furniture, torn fabric, and toys that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. It was as if time had frozen here. Creeping forward, I scanned the room, keenly aware of the locket still tightly clutched in my palm. A sense of purpose stirred within me. I had to know what had happened in this place. As I wandered further, I noticed a set of stairs spiraling down into a faint darkness, an unnatural blackness that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Without thinking, I turned toward the stairs. The whispers returned, hushed but insistent, echoing just beneath the surface of my thoughts. Help us! With each step downward, the walls grew colder, and the air thickened until it felt like a dense fog clung to my skin. The lantern's light flickered precariously as if the shadows that pooled along the stairs were trying to snuff it out. My instincts screamed to turn back, but I pressed on, propelled by the urgency of the voices, unsure of where they might lead me but knowing I couldn't abandon them. Emerging from the stairs into a vast underground chamber, I paused, absorbing the sight around me. The room was vast and dimly lit, illuminated by a few flickering torches that hung on the walls. At the center was an old stone altar, covered in strange carvings that shimmered faintly even in the low light. Surrounding the altar were figures, shadowy forms with indistinct facial features, waiting, watching. The moment I entered, the room fell silent, the figures turning toward me as one. For a breathless second, time stood still before the whispers erupted again, a chaotic choir rising in pitch. "Find us!" they cried as one, their voices now filled with a desperate yearning that tugged at my heart. I felt compelled to approach the altar, the locket in my hand pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Each step took me further into this labyrinth of despair. With trembling hands, I placed the locket atop the altar. The moment it touched the stone, the shadows stirred, swirling around me like a tempest. "Why have you come?" A voice broke through the cacophony, resonant and tinged with sorrow. It belonged to a figure standing just beyond the altar, its outline clearer than the rest, a woman, her features illuminated by a soft glow as if the light from the locket had awakened her. I want to help," I stammered, feeling the truth in my heart tighten like a vice. "What do you need?" The shadows surged forward, but the woman held a hand up. "You must understand, the keeper is here. He binds us to this place, and only through you can we find release." Confusion swirled in my mind. Who is the keeper? She beckoned me to understand, her eyes now glowing with a haunting sadness. "He feeds on our fears, our doubts. He feeds on the darkness you've opened by discovering this place." Suddenly, the walls trembled as shadows coiled tighter around me, and I stumbled, feeling a pull against the remnants of my own fear. In my heart, I realized that the truth was more complicated than I initially anticipated. I was not just an innocent bystander, I was part of this unfinished tragedy. "Accept it," she whispered urgently, her voice barely audible over the turmoil surrounding us. "You must embrace the pain to free us all." Before I could respond, shadows erupted from the depths of the chamber, coiling around me like languid tendrils, forcing me to my knees. "No, let me go," I screamed, but the shadows absorbed everything: my voice, my light, my hope. In that instant, clarity washed over me. What if I didn't just run? What if I faced the darkness and the truth it carried? In that vulnerability, I could help the trapped souls who had suffered long enough. I had one chance to redefine my role in this twisted story. I had to confront the keeper. With newfound determination, I pushed against the suffocating weight of the shadows pressing in on me. "I choose to fight. I choose light," I shouted into the darkness, channeling everything I had felt: the laughter, the pain, the whispers, and fears into a singular conviction. The shadows screeched at my proclamation, but I felt the locket ablaze with energy, illuminating not just the altar but the entire cavern. Those figures stood in their sorrow, transformed, somehow hope flickering in their eyes as my voice resonated within the very fibers of this dark place. Light erupted from within the locket, spilling freely and banishing shadows as it consumed the keeper's presence, unraveling the grip he had over those trapped. I felt the release of years of suffering captured in the cries echoing through the chamber. They weren't just echoes. They were finally finding their way home. With one final scream, the darkness dissipated, and silence fell. I fell back against the altar, exhausted but relieved. The figures began to dissipate, their forms shimmering, transmuting into beams of light that spiraled upward, escaping the prison I had found them in. The weight of the locket felt lighter, and I understood that I'd helped release them, however temporarily. As their presence faded completely, I knew my battle wasn't over, but it felt uncertain, like a door had closed, yet another lingered unlatched. What now? I thought, sitting alone in the aftermath of all that I had uncovered, that I would continue to search for understanding in the shadows and in the light, forever tied to that house and this night. And as I stood alone in the quiet chamber, the forest outside felt just as alive as the figures I had unleashed. The laughter and whispers faded into memory, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they lingered still, waiting for the next soul to reach out. I knew all too well that the darkness may have subsided, but the questions it raised in the wake of that night, they would haunt me for a lifetime.